Hi there, this is Ilana from Life While Cruise. Today I wanted to talk to you about cruising during the hurricane season, which of course is kind of coming up. So some of you might be preparing to cruise in the next couple months, or even maybe you're planning a cruise for next year. So today I'm going to go through 5 things that you should know about cruising during the hurricane season, and really just questions that people do ask so that you can feel comfortable, that you can be prepared and know everything that there is to know. So hurricanes can actually happen anywhere between the months of June and the months of November. That's hurricane season. So even though we often see that cruises are affected during the months of, let's say, mid-August and especially September and October, hurricanes can happen any time between June and November. So just so that we are prepared. But question number 1 is it safe to cruise during hurricane season? So yes, it is safe to cruise during hurricane season. Cruise lines would not bring you anywhere that would put their cruise passengers, their crew, or even their ships in any danger. So they do work with meteorologists. They have technology to do know where the hurricanes are going to be, and they will do their best, and they will actually be doing some things with the itinerary. I'll get into that a little bit later, but they will not bring your ship into harm's way. Now, in contrary to, let's say that you've booked a vacation and you're on an island, when there is a hurricane that is forecasted and you're on that island, you can't move. Whereas when you are on a ship, the good thing about being on a ship, and the reason it's safer, is because that ship can actually move around. So that's a really good thing about cruising during hurricane season, is your ship can move, and so that does make you safer. So what itineraries are affected should there be any hurricanes? So basically, Caribbean itineraries, Bermuda itineraries, and Bahamas itineraries are the most affected by hurricanes. So obviously, if you're going to be cruising like to Alaska, that is going to be okay, or even the Mediterranean, you are not going to be affected. But if you are sailing to these other areas, what can happen if there is a hurricane that is coming? So just to kind of give you a bit of an idea, our first cruise was affected by a hurricane. So we actually dealt with this firsthand. So I will tell you what happened to us personally, but I'll give you a general overview. So if there is a hurricane that is due to be going over, let's say, to Mexico or Jamaica, and that's in the Western Caribbean, oftentimes what will happen is the cruise lines will simply change itineraries. So your Western Caribbean cruise might become an Eastern Caribbean cruise. Instead of going to Jamaica, you might be going to St. Thomas. They're going to make a change in itinerary. One island might be replaced by the other. Something else that can happen is that they can lengthen a cruise or shorten a cruise, because they're never going to put that ship in harm's way and the people on the ship in harm's way. Something also to note is generally, when you're doing a Caribbean cruise, you might say, I'm flexible. So whether you're going to Jamaica or whether you're going to Grand Cayman, you might be okay with it, or St. Martin or one of the other islands, and that's all going to be good. And that's part of cruising. At any time, things can happen, but especially during hurricane season. But I will mention something. If you're cruising to Bermuda, something that happened last year, and you can Google it, was that a couple of cruises were actually affected. I think it was by a hurricane, by a storm at least, and they were not able to get to Bermuda. So what they had to do was change that itinerary, and due to the location that those cruise ships leave from, which is from New York, New Jersey, and Boston in general, those cruises had to be rerouted to Canada and New England, which is a beautiful place to go, and people love it, but it's not Bermuda. So some people were disappointed, but that is what happens if you cruise during hurricane season. Do remember that you have to be a bit flexible. So that is something that you do have to be prepared for. So on our first cruise, I'll tell you what happened is we booked our first cruise, and we booked it during hurricane season. It was right after our anniversary, which is on August 8th, and we booked our cruise for September 4th to celebrate our 10th anniversary. We were very happy. After we booked our cruise, we came home, and we booked it a few months in advance. And people said to us, well, isn't that hurricane season? And we were like, yeah, absolutely, but it's not a problem. The travel agent had explained that we needed to be flexible because the worst would come to worst is that the itinerary would just change. Instead of going to Cozumel and Jamaica and Grand Cayman, which is what we were supposed to do, maybe we would do Eastern Caribbean instead. So we weren't tied to it. It was our first cruise and we were okay with it. The ship was amazing. We were thrilled, and it was back in 2004. Now, if you Google 2004, the summer, you will find out that was the year of the hurricanes. So it was hurricane after hurricane after hurricane, like throughout the summer. And by the time we actually came onto our cruise a few days before, we had read about that there was a hurricane, and it looked like it was going to be kind of right over Miami. And that is what happened. That hurricane hovered over Miami, and what happened was we were supposed to be leaving out on our cruise. I believe it was on Saturday, possibly Sunday, and we got a phone call from our travel agent to say that the cruise line, it was Royal Caribbean, that they had to make a change in the itinerary. Our 7-day cruise would now be shortened to a 5-day cruise, and instead of leaving on Saturday, the cruise would now leave on Monday, and our cruise would become 5 days, and our itinerary was changing. We didn't even know what was happening yet, but they just couldn't leave out of Miami because that hurricane wasn't only affecting an island, it was affecting Florida, and there was no way planes could fly in and out. So what happened was the cruise that was before us became lengthened by a couple of days, and then that ship stayed out to sea. So people that were on a 7-day cruise had a 9-day cruise. And in our case, what happened is our 7-day cruise became a 5-day cruise. Now, I will tell you, and this cruise lines don't have to do this, but what did happen, and we were always like, we're forever grateful for it because we've done 20 cruises since. But what did happen was Royal Caribbean was amazing, and they offered us a chance to cancel our cruise if we had wanted to, which we didn't want to, but a chance to cancel our cruise. And if we did sail on the cruise, they offered us a nice onboard credit as well as a future discount on a future cruise of 50% for us, and we ended up taking our kids on that cruise. So that's a story for another day, but that is how we actually continued to cruise. So our first cruise was during hurricane season. We were, honest to God, we were nervous wrecks. So I'm not sure that, like, we haven't done it again since, but nevertheless, we were safe. We had an amazing cruise. Everything was phenomenal. But that is our hurricane story. How can you be prepared? So if you are cruising during the hurricane time or you're booking for that, so there are some things that you need to do. First of all, get travel insurance. So that's something very important, whether you decide to do it with a cruise line. So look into that to see if that's the right option for you. Whether you have it with your credit card, check into the stipulations, the terms and conditions, or you get it through a third party or through your work. Just check what you have and make sure that you are covered for a hurricane should it affect it, because not only can the cruise be affected, but it is a possibility that maybe your flight can't leave and you can't get there on time. So there are different things that can happen. You just want to be prepared and just cover all of your bases. Secondly, you might want to be prepared even just watching kind of the forecast, maybe even have a little bit of backup clothes. If you're doing Bermuda in particular and you end up in Canada and New England, you need a little bit warmer clothing. So do be prepared for that. And thirdly, just be flexible. So if you're booking during that time, know that things might happen and you have to be a bit flexible. It's still going to be a great vacation, but just kind of keep that in mind so that you don't get overly nervous and you kind of go with the flow. So sometimes people are going to ask, why would you cruise during hurricane season? Is it a good idea? And is it cheaper? So yes, it is cheaper. So there are 3 reasons that you might really like to cruise during hurricane season or during September, October, during those times of the year. So one of the reasons is because it is going to be less expensive. You can snag like amazing deals on great ships and really amazing itineraries. But another reason is also that because school's back in, that's kind of a quieter cruise to go on. So if you're adults and you don't really want a lot of children on a cruise, that's a lot better than the summertime. If you're maybe have some flexibility with your children, perhaps you homeschool, that's a really good time to go as well. Oftentimes you can get those kids sail free or those third and fourth passenger sail free specials. So that's a great reason to go during that time as well. And then the last reason is if there's no hurricane, it's honestly great weather to go in the Caribbean, to go in Bermuda, to go in the Bahamas. Oftentimes the weather is really beautiful, so you can still have a really nice cruise. I hope that this has been helpful if you are going on a cruise in the next couple of months, or if you're planning a cruise for next year during hurricane season. I hope that it's given you information and also helped you to feel a little bit more prepared and to know what to expect. Let me know in the comments if you are cruising in the next little while, if you've ever cruised during hurricane season, and what your own hurricane cruising story is. I'd love to hear it. And if you did like it, please give it a thumbs up. Let me know. And if you think it can help somebody else, please share it with a friend. You can find me on Facebook at Life All Cruised, on Instagram at Life All Cruised, on YouTube. And I wish you a happy cruise, and thanks for watching.